Alcohol is the most abused drug in South Africa. Let's talk about this headline and also later discuss how this links to the fact that men are dying more than women, dying younger than women in South Africa. Now, this report is directly linked to a statement which was made by the Department of Social Development. And what they are saying is that South Africa has one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption globally, and alcohol consumption per capita in the country has risen over the last 10 years. What the Department of Social Development has said is that alcohol use plays a role in about half of all non-natural deaths. And they've said that it's involved in 75% of homicide cases and 60% of automobile accidents. Also, they've said that it's involved in 24% of vehicle deaths and injuries. According to the Department of Social Development, alcohol is the third largest contributor to death and disability after unsafe sex and sexually transmitted infections and interpersonal violence, both of which are themselves influenced by alcohol consumption, as alcohol affects sexual and violent behavior. That's a lot. That's a lot that has been said by the Department of Social Development. And this is what this headline is about in the Star. There's also a study that I want to bring to your attention that just came out in the BMC Public Health Journal. The title of the study is Trends in Socio-Demographic Characteristics and Substance Use Among High School Learners in a Selected District in Limpopo Province, South Africa. So, according to this study, the most abused substances by learners were alcohol at 49%, cigarettes at 20.8%, and marijuana at 16.8%. And this study was done to determine the prevalence of substance use among selected high school learners in a district in Limpopo Province using a cross-sectional school survey of 678 learners. The conclusions were that substance use is rife amongst high school learners in the district. So if you're wondering about this study and the journal where it was published, the BMC Public Health is an open access peer-reviewed journal that focuses on the field of public health, particularly the epidemiology of diseases and various aspects influencing health outcomes. BMC stands for Biomed Central, which is the publisher of the BMC Public Health Journal. Biomed Central is known for its focus on open access publishing in the fields of biology and medicine, providing a platform for researchers to share their findings widely and freely. So if you consider the study in the BMC Public Health Journal, it shows that there is an issue of alcohol abuse amongst teenagers. And if you consider the statement that were made by the Department of Social Development, it also seems to corroborate that there's an issue of alcohol abuse. Going a little bit further into the dissection, there are mortality statistics that have been released this year by Statistics South Africa. And these mortality statistics are of this nature. They are civil registration and vital statistics, CRVS. Civil registration and vital statistics systems are the cornerstone of effective governance and public health infrastructure in any society. At the heart of these systems lies the crucial collection and analysis of mortality data, providing invaluable insights into population dynamics, health trends, and policy effectiveness, as they serve as essential tools for policymakers, public health officials, and researchers. So these mortality statistics are indicating something. And this is what they're saying. Historically, communicable diseases have been significant contributors to mortality in South Africa. However, non-communicable non-communicable diseases, NCDs, have emerged as a growing concern for South Africa's public health system, as there has been an increase in the proportion of deaths due to non-communicable diseases. In 2019, the leading causes of death due to non-communicable diseases in South Africa were diabetes mellitus, cerebrovascular diseases, hypertensive diseases, ischemic heart diseases, other forms of heart disease, chronic lower respiratory diseases, and malignant neoplasms of digestive organs. Non-communicable diseases accounted for the largest percentages of deaths in the country, according to the 2020 Statistics South Africa Mortality and Causes of Death in South Africa report. And that's the report that was released this year. Of these non-communicable diseases, diabetes, primarily type 2 diabetes, accounts for more than 90% of the diabetes cases, was the number one killer. Think about that. Of the non-communicable diseases, diabetes, primarily type 2 diabetes, which accounts for more than 90% of the diabetes cases, was the number one killer. Although the leading cause of death in 2020 was COVID-19, which accounted for 6.7% of the deaths, it was followed by diabetes at 6.6%, and because diabetes was a comorbidity, it's also something that is attributed to contributing to those high volumes of death. So there's clearly a crisis. Here's some other facts that you need to be aware of. More than 1.3 billion people worldwide will have diabetes at the half-century mark, which is 2050. And this is going to be up from 529 million people in 2021. And this is according to the Lancet Medical Journal estimates, which were released in June of 2023. The majority of the patients will have type 2 diabetes, the form that is often linked to being overweight. The link between diabetes and depression, we've been talking about mental health quite a lot, was highlighted recently by a specialist psychiatrist, Wisani Makomisane, at a recent medical conference in Cape Town. Makomisane said that a quarter of all adults with diabetes will have symptoms of depression, and those with pre-existing depression have a 60% greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Think about that. Diabetes is killing everybody. South Africa has the quickest rise of diabetes on the continent, from an estimated 1.9 million cases in 2011 to 4.2 million by 2021. And 7.5 million people are predicted to be afflicted by 2045. About 20% of the South African adult population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. So now that you know all of this stuff, you're beginning to wonder, well, we started with alcohol. Now we've spoken about diabetes and mortality and all of this stuff. What's alcohol got to do with it? Before we get there, I want you to be aware of some other statistics. We're getting there. Men are dying younger than women. Between 2016 and 2018, the percentage distribution of deaths of males accounted for 52.8% of all deaths and females for 47.2%. That number has improved a little bit. From 2019, there was a change in the pattern. The number of male deaths decreased to 52.7, just by 0.1 in 2019, and further to 51.1 in 2020. And female deaths increased from 47.3 to 48.9 in 2020. So there's been slight change in those numbers, but it's still very clear that men are dying younger than women, dying more than women, right? Obviously, we all die, but basically it's about the time at which you die. Male deaths peaked at the age group of 60 to 64, followed by the age group of 65 to 69. The highest proportions of females who passed on were at 65 to 69, 70 to 74, right? So if you look at the ages in which men and women are dying, men are dying much younger, which is why we're saying more men are dying. Right. Now, if you've watched my other video, you know that median age is something that is very important to be aware of. So the median age of death for females decreased by 8.8 years from 50.5 years in 1999 to 41.7 years in 2004, while the median age for death for males decreased by 2.9 years from 46.3 in 1999 to 43.4 in 2004. However, when ARVs became available and were affordable and freely distributed, since 2005, the median ages at death for both males and females have been increasing, which has reflected an improvement in mortality. Female median age at death had the sharpest increase, from 41.7 in 2004 to 64.0 in 2020. The median age at death for males increased from 43.4 in 2004 to 56.5 in 2020. So if you look at that, median age of death for men, 56.5. Median age of death for women is 64.0 in 2020, according to Statistics South Africa. So what is killing men? What is killing men? What is contributing to these deaths? First thing, alcohol and cigarettes. Approximately 4.4% of cancers diagnosed globally in 2019 were attributed to alcohol consumption. Alcohol consumption is associated with various cardiovascular issues, including high blood pressure, cardiomyopathy, which is heart muscle disease, and increased risk of stroke. Alcoholic liver disease. Chronic alcohol use can lead to fatty liver, alcoholic hepatitis, and cirrhosis, which is severe scarring of the liver. Alcohol also contributes to pancreatitis. I hope I'm saying these things right. Alcohol is a leading cause of both acute and chronic pancreatitis, which can lead to significant gastrointestinal complications. Alcohol can cause gastrointestinal issues such as gastritis, ulcers, and gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. It also impairs nutrient absorption, leading to deficiencies. Smoking increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 30 to 40%. It can also worsen complications related to diabetes. Smoking is also linked to lung cancer and cardiovascular disease. So smoking and alcohol are two of the activities cigarettes and alcohol are two of the substances most consumed by men. Let's talk about refined sugar and processed foods. These are some of the leading contributors to type 2 diabetes. So high-calorie diets, particularly those rich in processed foods and added sugar, contribute to weight gain and obesity, which are major risk factors for type 2 diabetes, right? The impact of weight is such that excess body weight, particularly abdominal fat, is strongly linked to insulin resistance. Being overweight can lead to metabolic changes that increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Excess weight, particularly around the abdomen, umkhaba, is a significant risk factor. A sedentary lifestyle is also a risk factor. Lack of regular physical activity contributes to weight gain and insulin resistance. Engaging in regular exercise helps to improve insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism. Now listen to this. Cigarettes and alcohol contribute to the development of type 2 diabetes. High levels of alcohol intake are associated with an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Heavy drinking can lead to insulin resistance and negatively impact blood sugar regulation. Studies have shown that individuals who consume large amounts of alcohol may have higher fasting blood glucose levels and HbA1c concentrations, indicating poorer long-term glucose control. HbA1c or glycated hemoglobin is a critical blood test used to assess average blood glucose levels over the past 2 to 3 months. Research indicates that for every unit increase in body mass index, there is a corresponding increase in the risk of developing heart failure and coronary artery disease. Severe obesity, where you have a BMI of over 35, significantly raises the risk compared to individuals with normal weight. So if you've been paying attention, you should be able to see the golden thread between the consumption of alcohol and diabetes and other diseases, leading killing diseases, the non-communicable diseases. And if you've also been paying attention, you can realize that alcohol is being introduced to young people. It's readily accessible in the townships, in Shabines, in a variety of places. And if you remember from the Enyobeni Tavern story, young people died as a result of alcohol poisoning and other allegations around substance abuse. They were in a tavern when that happened. So it's clear that something is going on. Who is responsible? Who is responsible? I've made this argument and I'm going to make it here. Individuals are responsible for their actions, what they put into their bodies, what they don't put into their bodies, how much they exercise, how much they don't exercise. That much is true. Individuals are responsible. But that is only part of the story. The other part of the story is that the owners of the alcohol companies, the advertisers of these alcohol products are also responsible. There is a relationship between advertising and purchasing decisions. That's why billions are spent on advertising. There's a relationship between public relations and voting, which is why billions are spent in election campaigns and ads and all of that. If there was no relationship, there would be no expenditure on these things. Alcohol advertising is particularly designed to make alcohol attractive to young people, because once you get them addicted, they then have problems all of their lives dealing with that addiction, because alcohol is addictive. Nicotine is addictive. There's a reason why at a certain point in history, it was deemed appropriate to ban cigarette advertising. It was deemed appropriate to ban cigarette advertising because there was a recognition that cigarette consumption was causing lung cancer and other diseases. And it was deemed appropriate from a public health perspective to stop the advertising of those products. And in fact, some people took those companies in countries such as America to courts in class actions, and they sued them successfully for introducing these cigarettes to them at a young age. If you accept that cigarette advertising and cigarette companies contributed to the lung cancer problem around the world, you have to think seriously about the impact of alcohol advertising, alcohol distribution in a country such as South Africa, and the culpability of the companies which are responsible for that. One of the biggest distributors of alcohol in South Africa has been the company Distel. Distel is a company that is owned by, or was owned for a long period of time by the Rupert family, and it's attributable to brands such as Savannah that you know. Recently, Distel has been sold to Heineken, and the Rupert family now owns a smaller share of that larger company, I think about 18 to 19% through their company Remgro. For a long time, even the cigarettes that were being consumed in South Africa were as a result of the activities of the company Rembrandt. So Rembrandt is the company that brought a lot of big brands to South Africa. And in fact, even up to now, Remgro still owns a share of British American Tobacco South Africa, which produces 98% of all of the cigarettes that are consumed in South Africa. Right? So I'm bringing this up because I want to make this point. It is perhaps time to consider a ban on alcohol advertising. Think about alcohol advertising, the way it's done. There's two types of alcohol advertising. There's the whole after a long day's work, and then they show the bouncer, with his muscles, who has been working in the coal mine or some other place, the black label type of advert. He's been hitting metal all day. And then after a long day's work, it's unclear why after a long day's work, he doesn't need a smoothie or a protein shake no, he needs a beer. Give the man a beer after a long day's work. That advertising, I think, has had an impact on people. The advertising by SAB Miller Brands, all of these companies, I think has had an impact. Then there's the second type of alcohol advertising where they get influencers, highly popular celebrities, etc. And they then go around, go to the cool spot where they drive there, it's all cool, good music playing, they're chilling, leaning back in the vehicle, go in there, it's beautiful people, it's sexy people, everything is popping, and they never drink apple juice. No, gotta drink the cider, gotta drink the whiskey. Then there's the other one, where they try to make it like it's about jokes. No, it's not dry, but you can drink it. All of these ads, you think they don't have an impact? I think that if we accept that there should be a ban on cigarette adverts, there should be a ban on alcohol advertising. Number two, I think that there needs to be a higher tax on sugar, right? Because the proliferation of sugary products, processed sugary products, has contributed to the diabetes problem. It's being affected in three fronts: cigarettes, processed foods, processed sugar, as well as alcohol. There needs to be a higher tax on sugar, particularly fizzy drinks and other types of sugar products. But there also needs to be a tax on the profits, not on the products, on the profits of these sugar companies and alcohol companies. I think that because of the massive healthcare problems I discussed earlier, those healthcare problems show up in the public health system. They show up in the problems that were discussed by the Department of Social Development. So in order to have resources to combat those problems, I think there needs to be a bigger tax on these particular things. There's supposed to be a tax on sugar products, but it was suspended for 2 years, etc. I think it needs to be introduced, and there needs to be even additional taxes. Having said that, I think that we need to also discuss something as men. We need to shift away from alcohol, from cigarettes, from some of the foods that we spend a lot of time eating. We need to move to active lifestyles, to high fiber foods. Did you know that, some of these things can have an impact on your performance in the bedroom, your stamina, your libido? Pella, as men, that's the thing we care about the most. So I think I was listening to a doctor once who was speaking on 702, and he spoke about significantly how a lot of people are drinking all of these things that are supposed to improve their performance, in the bedroom, when really what they should be doing is just fixing their diet, and 90% of their issues will go away. You don't need pills. You don't need all of these things. You just need to cut down the cigarettes, the sugar, the alcohol, and you will rise like Rise Mzansi in Mzansi. You understand? You understand? I'm telling you this because we have to look out for each other. We need to remind each other of the high risks of death from these silent killers. When you live on earth, you're fighting Father Time and Mother Nature. And all you have is your human nature. But if you improve your human nature, you can have a better chance fighting Father Time and Mother Nature. And one of the ways we do that, I think, is by being very aware that there are products and habits that are actively killing us. You don't want to leave your children without parents. You don't want to leave your siblings without your love, your companionship. So let's do better. Let's do better, and let's be aware Till the next one.